morning of October 14th, the fog rolled into Briar Harbor thicker than anyone could remember that season. It swallowed the marina first. Fishing boats faded into pale shapes, then into nothing at all. The gulls went quiet. Even the sound of waves seemed muffled. By mid-morning, the town would be talking about only one thing. Because sometime between midnight and sunrise, a man named Lucas Hale disappeared. Not gradually, not after weeks of strange behavior. Instantly, he left behind his coat, his car, his phone, and a half-written warning on his kitchen table. And by the time detectives understood what he had discovered, they realized Lucas Hale hadn't simply gone missing. Someone had tried to bury him. Lucas Hale was not the type of man anyone expected to vanish. He was 38 years old, a structural engineer employed by Briar Harbor's Municipal Infrastructure Office. His job was simple in theory. He inspected bridges, tunnels, and public structures, reviewing data and certifying safety reports. Quiet work, precise work, the kind of work that required patience more than ambition. Lucas had both. He lived alone in a narrow townhouse overlooking the harbor road. He drove the same silver sedan he'd owned for 8 years. He bought groceries every Sunday at the same market. Neighbors described him in similar ways. Reliable, polite, private. He nodded when spoken to, helped carry heavy packages if asked, and rarely played music loud enough for anyone else to hear. If Lucas Hale had secrets, they were buried beneath spreadsheets and inspection forms. Until the night he vanished. At 7:40 a.m., his colleague Aaron Walsh called the police. Lucas had missed an emergency inspection meeting scheduled for dawn. That alone wasn't unheard of, but Lucas had also sent an email at 2:13 that morning. It contained only one sentence. "I think I made a mistake looking into this." No subject line, no attachment, no follow-up. Aaron tried calling him, no answer. So she contacted the police. Officers arrived at Lucas's townhouse shortly before 9. The front door was locked, the windows closed. Nothing seemed unusual from outside. Inside, though, the house felt strangely paused. Lucas's phone sat charging beside his bed. His wallet lay on the kitchen counter. A mug with dried coffee rested near the sink. On the dining table, his laptop remained open. Beside it was a yellow legal pad. Across the top page, written hurriedly, were the words, "Harbor Bridge, foundation report wrong." Below it, a second line had begun. "If they know The sentence ended there. The pen lay on its side, ink smudged where it had stopped. No signs of struggle and no broken furniture, just an unfinished thought. And no Lucas Hale. Detective Mara Vance received the case that afternoon. She had worked missing persons in Briar Harbor for over a decade. Most cases followed familiar paths. A fight with a partner, a financial crisis, a planned disappearance, sometimes tragedy. But as soon as she stepped into Lucas's home, she felt something different. Not chaos, not violence, just interruption. As if Lucas had expected to return in minutes, and never did. Mara began with a note. Harbor Bridge. The bridge was one of the town's busiest structures, connecting the historic waterfront district to the industrial peninsula. Cargo trucks crossed it daily. Commuters relied on it. Lucas had been one of the engineers responsible for its annual safety certification. When Mara requested the latest inspection files, she immediately noticed something odd. 2 weeks earlier, Lucas had submitted a preliminary internal report. It mentioned moderate corrosion in lower supports, routine issues, nothing urgent. But the final report, officially certified 3 days ago, Tikal declared the bridge fully compliant, structurally sound, and safe for unrestricted use. Digitally signed by Lucas and by 2 additional engineers. At first glance, everything looked normal until Mara checked Lucas's laptop. Hidden in his draft folders was another version of the report. This one was very different. It warned of foundation instability caused by internal erosion beneath several support columns, soil displacement, water intrusion, potential risk of partial structural collapse under sustained heavy load. At the bottom of the draft, Lucas had typed, reinforcement plates appear hollow, data inconsistent with material specs, pressure from council liaison to finalize without further testing. Mara read the sentence twice. If Lucas was right, the official report wasn't just inaccurate, it was dangerous. And someone had insisted it be filed anyway. That evening, Mara interviewed Lucas's fellow engineers. Both insisted the bridge was safe. Both said Lucas had reviewed the final data and approved the certification. Their tone was calm, careful, almost rehearsed. When Mara asked if Lucas had seemed stressed recently, one engineer hesitated. Just briefly. Then admitted Lucas had questioned soil scan results late last week. But according to him, Lucas seemed satisfied after reviewing updated numbers. Mara noted the hesitation, because people don't send cryptic 2 a.m. emails, unless something is still very wrong. The next morning, Mara reviewed traffic cameras. At 12:47 a.m., Lucas's silver sedan left his street. At 1:03 a.m., it crossed Harbor Bridge toward the peninsula. At 1:19 a.m., it entered a municipal lot near an old maintenance road beneath the bridge. That was the last confirmed sighting. Police located Lucas's car that afternoon, locked, undamaged. Inside were his work ID, a flashlight, and a printed copy of the certified bridge report. The maintenance path nearby led down toward the concrete supports beneath the bridge. Mara walked it herself. The fog lingered low over the water. Sound carried strangely. Halfway down the path, she noticed scrape marks on the concrete. Fresh ones. They led toward a small locked service hatch embedded in one of the bridge's base structures. Maintenance unlocked it. Inside was a narrow inspection shaft, metal ladder, concrete walls, cold, damp air. Mara descended slowly. At the bottom, her flashlight caught something lying on the floor. Lucas's coat, folded. Beside it, his watch. Stopped at exactly 1:42 a.m. But Lucas himself was gone. On the far wall, Mara noticed something more disturbing. Fresh drilling marks. A rectangular section of concrete had been cut open recently, then resealed. Someone had accessed the interior foundation cavity, and Lucas had clearly found it. The investigation widened quickly. Records showed that 6 months earlier, a subcontractor named Northspan Infrastructure had been hired to reinforce erosion control beneath Harbor Bridge. Their work had passed inspection, but a deeper audit began revealing inconsistencies. Invoices for specialized steel plates that never appeared in delivery logs. Crew sign-ins on days when site cameras showed no workers present. And emails referencing accelerated approval pressure. If Northspan had cut corners, the bridge's stability might depend on faulty reinforcements hidden inside the foundation. 3 days into the investigation, forensic technicians recovered something critical from Lucas's laptop, a deleted audio recording. Time-stamped 1:31 a.m. Recorded beneath Harbor Bridge. Mara listened in silence. Lucas's voice came first, breathing hard. I scanned the reinforcement plates myself. They're hollow. If the support fails, traffic load could shear the column. A second voice answered. Low. Calm, male. You weren't supposed to run independent scans. Lucas replied sharply. People drive across this every day. You can't fake safety reports. The voice responded. The report's already filed. Lucas said. Then I'll file the real one tomorrow. A pause. Then the second voice. Quieter. That won't be necessary. A metallic clang followed. A short struggle. The recording ended. The voice was identified as Daniel Kessler, Northspan's site supervisor. He was arrested the following evening. At first he denied everything. But confronted with the recording, the forged invoices, and the resealed concrete cavity, he broke. Kessler admitted the company had used substandard hollow reinforcement shells instead of solid structural plates. They saved millions in material costs. Inspection data had been manipulated. When Lucas discovered the discrepancy, he confronted Kessler during a late-night site visit. Kessler said Lucas threatened to expose everything the next morning. According to his statement, panic took over. He shoved Lucas during the argument. Lucas fell backward, striking his head on exposed steel, unconscious. Kessler assumed he was dead, or close to it. In desperation, he dragged Lucas into the open foundation cavity where workers had been installing plates earlier that week. Then he resealed the concrete access panel, leaving Lucas inside, buried within the bridge Emergency crews reopened the section within hours. Inside the narrow cavity, barely large enough to crouch, they found Lucas Hale. Alive, weak, severely dehydrated. He had regained consciousness hours after being sealed in darkness, with almost no airflow, no light, no way out. Using a loose metal bracket, Lucas had spent hours tapping against the inner wall. Slow, repeated. The faint sounds were initially dismissed by nearby workers as water movement, until rescue teams arrived and listened closely. Lucas survived. Doctors later said another day without rescue might have been fatal. His testimony exposed the entire fraud. Northspan executives were charged with criminal negligence, fraud, and falsification of safety records. City officials who had pressured for rapid certification faced separate investigations. Harbor Bridge was closed immediately for emergency reconstruction. Engineers later confirmed that without intervention, progressive foundation failure could have led to partial collapse within a year. Weeks later, the fog returned to Briar Harbor. But this time, traffic no longer crossed Harbor Bridge. It stood silent behind barricades and scaffolding. Lucas Hale eventually returned home. When reporters asked why he had gone back that night alone, he answered quietly, "If something feels wrong, you don't ignore it. You check again. Because if you're right, someone's life could depend on it." Detective Mara Vance watched from across the street as Lucas unlocked his door. Another missing person case closed, but one that stayed with her, because disappearances don't always begin with danger. Sometimes they begin with a small inconsistency, a number that doesn't match, a report that feels off, a decision to look closer than anyone else dared. And sometimes that decision is the only reason the truth is uncovered, before it's sealed in concrete forever. End of narration.